At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. All right, welcome everybody. So what makes a company truly thrive? Is it the strategy, the products, or is it the people? The truth is, none of these work without one critical element: company culture. The invisible force that shapes how teams collaborate, innovate, and drive success. What separates a great culture from a toxic workplace? Ready to give you the inside intel is Mitch Lewandowski from Symbionic. He has spent years transforming workplaces and creating winning cultures where employees don't just show up, they engage and excel. If you're a business owner, a team leader, or someone who's ever thought, why does my workplace feel this way? Get set to learn how you can create a winning company culture that can attract and retain top talent. Teaches leaders how to set the tone from the top. Avoid common mistakes that drive people away. But before we get into all of this, we got to give a huge shout out to our good friends at Cobalt Creed for helping builders and developers of prefab home builders and manufacturers achieve top-tier comfort, superior indoor air quality, and low energy costs. Their expertise revolves around a small duct, high-velocity central heating and cooling system, perfect fit for the factory installation, thanks to its compact design and efficiency. So why don't you go say hello to them and learn more at Cobalt Creed. Now, a few words from these supporting members as well. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Ready to scale up your offsite construction business? Introducing 4A Constructs, your solution to finding skilled labor for offsite manufacturing. Say goodbye to the headache of recruiting a skilled workforce with hand-selected certified tradesmen that are expertly trained and managed for offsite manufacturing, set crews, and finish crews, ensuring maximum productivity and safety. Unlock the future of skilled workforce development for all of your offsite construction needs. Visit them at 4aconstructs.com. All right. Again, a big thank you to all of our supporting members. Hey, and be sure to thank all of these supporting members that you see scrolling across the bottom of the stream, and a new member that we just picked up as well, SIGA. Hey, if you want to learn more about SIGA, go to their website and check them out, SIGANorthAmerica.com. All right. Without further ado, You all came here to learn about culture. You all came here to learn about how to make your company run with well-oiled machine. Mitch Lewandowski, let's bring him onto the show. Mitch, how are you, my friend?
Awesome. Doing great. Thanks for having me on today, Dave.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. So here we are running around the International Builders Show, and we're doing some work over in the FIBO booth, and across the way there you are, standing with one of the several large companies that you work with, here in the United States and around the world. And we had this great conversation about, who you are, what you do, and it was a perfect fit for this show because company success is all based around culture. It's all based around process. And the best companies in the world that I have seen in our industry in particular have all of those things. Why don't you tell us before we get into it a little bit about what you do? In fact, Mitch, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or I am going to have your mom on, a family member on, maybe somebody back from the hood in Detroit, Michigan, but somebody's going to come on, and I know it'll get embarrassing. But you only have about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to do it. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, I'll speak slow and avoid everything then. Well, first off, most of my friends from when I was young are either dead or in prison, so I was making some poor choices when I was young. Yeah, I grew up in Michigan and left in '88, spent 20 years in South Florida, and then I was 16 years here in the Atlanta, Georgia area with my wife, our wonderful 18-year-old daughter who's launching to college next fall. I can't believe it already. Done a lot of travel, business all over the world, 70 or 75 countries or so. My favorites are New Zealand and Costa Rica. Let's go. I am the president of Symbionic, and our mission here is to help every owner lead a healthy, whole, and profitable company. I love to help other folks grow. It's a big thing about me. I'm just a big catalyzer for growth. And some folks call me a coach, some a mentor. One lady that I invested in, she called me Tinkerbell one day, and I'm like, Tinkerbell? She said, yeah, because you sprinkle the pixie dust and everything flies. And one more thing about me is I do love all things cycling. Most folks know that have gotten to know me. So I have the rule N+1, where the number of bikes that you have is the number of bikes you need is the number you have plus one. So big on that. So that's a little bit about me, Dave.
Well, I love it. I love it. We were talking about this, right? You got a very outward personality, right? And like similar to myself, right? You're definitely not an introvert with that said. But with that, you love to work with people. You love to work with teams. You like to see other people succeed. But why? Where does that come from? Where does the passion come from before we really get into, what company culture truly is and what you guys do?
Yeah, well, imagine that you've got a dozen eggs, and somebody tells you that there are 2 good eggs in the crate, and there are 10 are bad, and you crack 10 bad eggs. What's the chance of the next 2 being good? Pretty high, right? Well, I made so many bad choices early on in my career in and around this culture thing, which is a big part of my why. Early on, I was very successful in creating businesses that could make a lot of money. Back in Miami, we used to joke around, it was the Derek Jeter days, that everything that we did, it became very successful financially. But what I didn't realize at the time was financial success did not equal company health. As a matter of fact, we made a lot of money, but we had very dysfunctional companies, had multiple companies at one time. And it was like, man, I look back, it's like, if I could do all that over again, it was borderline malpractice. So in 2010, I sold my last window and door business at the time. And I went on a quest. I said, basically, Dave, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to this. What's missing? And I realized that to build healthy companies was a very, very different approach. And so I've been on a 15, 16-year journey of that. I became a big reader and listener and follower. I became a client of Patrick Lencioni in the Table Group. I worked with Gino Wickman's group, Traction EOS, then on to Greg Cleary and Pinnacle, and many other great business minds, just to learn what's it like to build a healthy company. And I saw so many of the things that were missing in what I had done. And I also saw that the same things that I was missing, a lot of other business owners and business leaders were missing. We got to drink our own Kool-Aid. We saw our financial success as business success, and it really wasn't. And so once I figured that out, I said, okay, I've got to do this different. I've got to approach this different. And so I started doing it differently, and then I started helping other folks do it differently.
So before we hop into helping people understand what their culture is and what they may need or may not need to fix in their world, who do you work with? Do you work with the Fortune 500, small to mid tiers? I mean, you've been in the construction space or the component space
Yeah.
for a long time and have built very successful businesses around that. So who are you working with now?
Yeah, I primarily work with privately held businesses that are owner led or operated.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got under 200 million. I've got a 1 billion plus company that's a bit larger, a couple in that space actually. But I really like working with owner operators. The guy that started it with two guys, 10 years ago, and all of a sudden, they got 150 employees and they're a bit over their skis. But that the companies that I work with well are the ones that say, I either want to get better or I realize I have a problem, I've got to solve it. But both of those folks fit into this bucket of what I call as teachable and coachable. Sometimes I'll meet folks, they need a lot of help. And, let's just say you introduce me to some guy, Bob. Bob's real popular these days. And I meet with Bob and I talk to him and I'm like, he's not ready. So I said, hey, it's great meeting you. Been nice. He goes, what about us? I was like, yeah, we're not going to be a good fit. So teachable and coachable is what I look for, regardless of the company size or what vertical they're in, because that person, that guy or that girl says, I want to grow and I need help.
Yeah. Our industry right now, offsite construction, manufactured housing, whether it's panelized, modular, mass timber, whatever the case is a growing market. And there are companies that are just killing it right now and have more business than they want. But that's not the majority of them, right? And I think when you're growing in an industry so fast and you're setting up these multi-million-dollar manufacturing facilities, sometimes the process of culture and team and how do you set a company up for success? How is the owner a great coach for their team and empower their team moving forward? What would you say is when you speak to somebody, what are those questions to answer? Is this a good fit? Do you need help? How does somebody know when they need help? Like being over your skis is one thing, but hey, I look at my bank account and I got millions of dollars in it, but yet every day I'm stressed out and I got to put out all these fires all the time. Like where does somebody go? Shit, I need some help. Excuse my French.
I don't think that's French, actually. If you look up the derivative, I think it's American.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
carry on, Mitch. Carry on.
I'll give you a couple examples. So I had a great call yesterday with the CEO of a tech company, and she was saying, we realized that we got to this place where we needed to get some help around us. So we've been bringing in people, and they've actually got multiple coaches with the organization. We're doing this, we're doing this. I want to learn more about what you guys are doing. Let's talk. I'm listening to that person, hungry to learn from other people. Had lunch recently with the president, West Coast, be very generic, West Coast company, great location we had lunch at. And he's just like, hey, we're cooking with gas, all this stuff. He's showing me this new car he got, approved, by the way. I like anything with wheels. And he's telling me how good things are going. And I'm listening to this person. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. But I've already spoke to 4 or 5 people on the leadership team. It is not fine. They're like, this guy, we need help. This is not a healthy culture. This person thinks they've got all the right answer, and we're just going on the good chip lollipop. And he's not looking at what's wrong with the company. So I'm listening to that. I'm like, is this the same company? But I realized coming out of that lunch, I cannot help him because he totally thinks that he's on the right track. Obviously, it's not listening to anybody around him. He is not ready to hear anything that I have to say.
Well, listen, I mean, most people that are starting businesses and companies are typically A-type personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have the go-get attitude and they've built this from the ground up and they know what works or what doesn't work. Me included, even in what I do, I have that syndrome every once in a while. How does somebody realize that's how they're being? And if you look at any great company, you look at Elon Musk, whether you like him or hate him, or any Bill Gates or any of these big, billionaires that run and operate all of these mega companies, somehow they've found a way to step out and empower their team.
Yeah.
How do we get the smaller business owner, even if they are $1 billion or $1 million or whatever the company size is, to start looking outside of themselves, and saying, how do I do this?
Yeah, well, and that's a big thing, and we just talked about that a moment ago. When that owner, when that CEO, when that founder says, "Hey, I've been able to get from zero to wherever here is on mostly my own energy and my power, but for me to go from here to someplace else, I'm going to have to bring in other people around me." One of my favorite clients in the whole wide world that I've been working for about 2 years now. Love this guy. Again, I'll keep everybody nameless. But when I first met him, he had a couple companies. He was starting a third business, and I said, "Hey, if you are satisfied with the results that you've been getting with your previous companies, keep doing those exact same things over here, and you will get the exact same result." Totally ticked him off. He says, "I was really offended when I first heard that. I didn't even tell him he was doing anything wrong." But the reality was he really wasn't happy with what he was getting out of those other companies over
Right.
multiple years. And he realized, "Hey, I've got to approach this new business differently." And that awareness of I've got to do something different. If you want a different outcome, you need a different process. And bringing in people from the outside to help you that have gone down that road is key to that success in the future.
How does somebody define what their company culture is? Like obviously there's some misconceptions that are out there. There's that,
Yeah,
I know everything mentality as well. Or if you want, like you just said, you want something different, you got to change what you're doing.
yeah,
But, if I'm a business owner and, I'm running a company, where do I start looking inside myself and saying, yeah, I could really use some help on this? What would be some key indicators?
yeah. Well, backing up for a second, just on the topic of culture, every company has a company culture. Everyone does.
Yeah.
95% of the time, that culture has been created over a multiple of years by the employees. Walk into any company, the culture that's there, that's the vibe of the employees. And so you have these companies, especially companies that have scaled and gotten a little bit messy. The culture that they have in place has been defined by those people over a multitude of years. And so you've got people that are unhealthy, you've got people that are great. And so one of the things, and I exercise this out with CEOs all the time, because they say, "Oh, we want to have a great company culture." Okay, well, they'll come up with maybe what they want it to be. I did a recent workshop last week. I had a group of folks, leadership team, and I said, "Do your company cultures, write them down on a piece of paper, and then let's come put them up on the whiteboard." And you had 5 different people with 5 different sets of core values. I'm like, okay. Now, how many employees in the company? XYZ, great. What do you think there's a chance that everybody else in the employee of the business would also come up with their own set? They're like, yeah, pretty high. So you've got this rando culture vibe. I said, but if we rely upon everybody's view to define the culture, that's what it is. But what if we were to get in a room, not the CEO, not the owner coming up with it, but put the leadership team, the people that are most responsible to take this business from wherever it's at to wherever we want to get it to? Let's define what the culture is. And they say, "Oh, well, how do we do that?" I said, "Well, let's take the 4 or 5 people within your company." We just did this last week with a group. I said, if you had 4 or 5 people in the company that were folks that if you were going to start a new business tomorrow, you definitely take with you. Oh, yeah. Who would they be? We write them down. I said, great. What are the things about these people that you love, that you really appreciate, that make them invaluable, that make them irreplaceable? We started to figure out what those were. I said, look at the commonality with these people of what you're saying here. What if you could build a company around that culture? Light bulbs went on. They're like, oh my gosh, if we could do that, this would take us to a totally different place. Yes, it could. Well, why don't we just define the culture from what's on the board right now? We came up with, I think it was 5 with this group. We came up with 5 core values, basically. Said, what if we just told everybody, these are our core values because this is what we believe in? Oh my gosh, this would be great. Now, I could have come up with a list like that, but it would have been my list. The CEO could have come up with a list, it would have been his list. But because the leadership team came up with it and it was based upon their A players, that's something that they've said, we can build any business on this. And so this is how we do it to get people thinking around what a culture is and how to create a culture and a set of core values around the right kind of people.
All right, so we have our culture, the core values of our culture, and what the words are: fun, exciting, innovative, whatever those words are that a company is going to use.
Mm.
You got a team of 100 people, 50 people, 200 people. How do you start ingraining culture into the team without it looking like you're fake and trying to force something that they feel does not exist?
Yeah, and that thanks for asking that question. Here's a couple things on this. Number one is you don't go out and you don't just air bomb drop this onto the or carpet bomb it to the employees. Hey, this is our new culture. You don't do that. The very first thing that we do with clients that we work with is getting the leadership team to start to live, eat, and breathe that culture. Because, for example, I have a client recently that came up with one of their core values, badass team player. We
Yeah.
celebrate the success of everyone on the team all the time. What they realized was there was 4 to 5 people in the organization that were just all-stars, represented that ethos in everything that they did. But then it went down and down and down and down to the caveman that just didn't want to be around everybody, hated anybody's success.
Mhm.
Okay, so badass team player. So we want to have that. You all in this room right here have to start living that out over the 60, 90, 120 days and representing that. You can't just talk about it. So then as and typically what we do about, say, 3 months out, we'll codify our core values. And then the leadership team has to present that to the company, say, this is what we want to build the business on. And we own these. We haven't always owned these and we failed in these, but this is what we want to live by. And we're asking for your help in living up to these as well. That's the first thing, is owning it. Then the next thing is you start to call out people that are representing those core values, and you start holding people accountable that are not representing those core values. So if, Bob, again, if Bob is doing something that doesn't represent being a badass team player, hey, Bob, I really appreciate you being here. But when you do these things, this is how it impacts the core values that we're working on. Now, Bob's got a choice. It doesn't matter. You and I talked about this earlier. It's binary. Either Bob is going up and to the right and growing with the company, or he's going down and to the left. But there's not a place for him to hide anymore. In the past, Bob and all these people that would just do whatever they wanted to do, we would just let them do that. And we accepted it. And because we accepted it, what we said is, this is acceptable behavior within the organization, which means it's a part of our culture. But no longer. And not only do we see it, the other employees see it. So the Bobs of the world that don't want to grow and go with us get quickly isolated, and because it's obvious to everybody that they're not representing this.
Right.
And so it creates this herd mentality of, we're going in this direction for growth. We want to be a part of this, and Bob does not. Sorry for anybody who's named Bob, by the way, that's on the call.
Well, okay. So Mitch, let me ask this then. All right. We put our culture, company core values in place, which is helping us define our culture.
Yeah.
How do you give a scorecard to, maybe it's fun? Like, versus, Bob may be going this way, or Bob, he may be zigging or he may be zagging, but as a defined leader of the company that has to manage Bob, how is there a scorecard to say whether he's zigging or zagging in the wrong direction? Track versus, I just don't like Bob.
Yeah, a couple things on that. Number one is, when we build out core values, they're very, very specific, and they are not in the arena of permission to play. So, for example, fun would not be a core value because everybody would want to have fun at work. But it's more specific than that. It's something that you can go to the bank or you can rob a bank with. It's very, very specific, and it's something that's clearly identified. Now, the second thing is what we do is we start to rate people on a scale of 1 to 10 on culture and a scale of 1 to 10 on performance. And what we're looking for is people that are above 5 in both. That fits into the A potential category, and because we can grow those folks. And then we've got B, C, and C players that are below the line in one or both of those categories. And that's where you can say, if these are my 5 core values and the maximum score is 10, and Bob is scoring regularly a 4, you can sit down and talk to him and say, hey, look, this is where we see, and your people see you on this. Do you want to grow with us? Because if you do, Bob, we want to invest in you because we care about you as an employee. We want to see you be the best version of yourself that you want to be. And Bob has a choice to make there. Hey, they care about me. They want me to grow. I want to be on board. Or, I could care less. How about I give you a finger? You give me a phone call. And that's okay. That's no harm, no foul. This is not going to be the place for you, because as we exit the people that don't want to play the game to win, everybody else sees that, say, oh, thank goodness, we're not going to miss him at all. And this is one of the things when we do score out people, we've got those A players. We've also got those C players. I say, hey, with these lower performers, if they left today, would you invite them back tomorrow? Heck no. Well, but you've been letting them work here for 10 years. Yeah. So they're either growing or they're going.
Growing or they're going. That should be a hat. That could be a core value saying, right? Quote, either you're growing or you're going.
Hashtag growing or going.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk this through a little bit further and really get into the weeds with the company and the culture, because we talk about setting the right company culture. One of the things that I hear in our industry so much and every day, and it's a fact, even Mike Rowe talks about it, is hiring good people, recruiting trades, or any of those things, even if it's office staff or labor.
Yeah.
How important is company culture to helping you recruit new staff members or even retaining staff members? Because to me, it sounds like it's kind of in the same realm. Like, that's what you want, right? People saying, hey, I want to work there because this place is cool. We can take naps at 11 a.m.
That is huge. Gosh, I have so much on this, so I'm going to try to be very concise. And you just point a mean finger at me if I go long on this. Number one is, once you define your culture and you're crystal clear on that, you use that as a recruiting tool. As a matter of fact, I've got a number two within a fast-growing company here in the Southeast. They've gone from like 0 to 76 million in like 16 months or something crazy town like that. And I said to him, I said, hey, how has this changed how you interview and you recruit? He's completely different. I'm looking for these cultural traits in the people that we're interviewing. I'm not telling them on the front end, these are our core values, because they go, oh, yeah, that's me. But I'm asking questions in and around these core values, because one of the things that we want to be able to do is we want to hire and we want to retain A players. And we also want to have a bench of A potential players that we don't have a seat for, but we know that there would be good contributors. So when an opportunity does open up, we can already bring them in. So as we start to screen this way, and actually had a person recently get not accepted for a position, told the recruiter, and I read this email, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing company I've ever interviewed for. How they represent their core values and how they live them out, and everything that I see was way up here. I've never seen a company interview at this level before for culture. I would love to be there someday, even though I didn't get accepted for that position. Now they found somebody who was even a better fit. But when you get potential people that don't get the job say, I was absolutely blown away by this company culture, that's you're starting to cook with gas on that. So that's a big deal. Use it as your recruiting tool, and then make sure that only people that you bring in are already fitting the culture that you're focused on. You don't worry about the performance. Even you talked about the SEAL teams, Bin Laden. With the SEAL teams, when they're looking for people to come on the SEAL teams, they don't look for the highest performing sniper, for example. The number one guy with 6,000 yards, every single shot spot on, but he's a jerk. They will not let that guy on the team. They will take the lower performing person that fits the culture of the team way before the high performing guy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% on that. And just for some reference, no, you didn't miss anything in the show about us talking about the special ops team. We had a conversation prior, and the gentleman that killed Bin Laden. I watched him speak, and he made a comment, and he said, number one rule on the SEALs team is nobody wants to work for an asshole. That's what he said. And then he looked at the crowd and said, why are you guys all looking at each other? Right. So that's kind of where that reference came from for those of you that are just joining us. But yeah, this is funny. I've said it a million times over. I said at the beginning of the show, culture to me is everything for the success and thriving of a business. But
100%.
Once you have that culture in place, right, and people are really starting to, eat the pudding every day and not just eat it, but believe it and like it. Having those core values is one thing. But also having a strong team leader or owner that is putting processes in place for other people to be successful is part of building that culture, is it not?
Huge.
Because you don't want to be looking over everybody's shoulder all the time.
Yeah, huge. I think I've said for many years, and I've heard this derivative of this from somebody a long time ago, so I can't give the credit where it's due. And that is the two most important things that any leader is to do, and these are the only two things that they should be doing: cast vision and get people inspired and excited and on board. And most entrepreneurs are very, very good at that. But the second thing is to coach and develop others to then be coaches and developers of others. And most entrepreneurs aren't very good at that one. So it's like, I'm a 9, I'm a -2. And so getting leaders and a leadership team to realize, okay, these are my most 2 important skills. And some people are high on this and low on this, doesn't really matter. But we want them to be powerful in both. But once folks get it down of I'm to be coaching and developing my next level people, my next level leaders, and I never use the word managers. Manager is somebody who sweeps the floor, takes out the trash, and turns out the lights. There were a lot of managers on the Titanic, by the way. By the end of the cruise, not so many. But leaders are coaching and developing others to be great leaders. So if I've got a team of 5, my direct reports, and all I'm doing is making sure that they're doing their job, I'm totally missing the mark. But if I see that, say, hey, we're growing from where we're at to someplace in the future, 4 to 5 years out, we refer to as our pinnacle. I need these people to level up and grow them. It's my responsibility. I had a meeting with a CEO recently, and I said, hey, you got so-and-so on your team. He's a unicorn rainbow, isn't he? He goes, oh, totally. This guy's amazing. He's magic. I said, can you build your whole company on those kind of people? He goes, yeah, I sure can. I'm like, no, you can't because they don't exist. You got so lucky with that. That's like one of a bazillion people. He goes, oh, yeah, you're right. So what are you going to do? And he's like, scary-eyed look. I said, you've got to develop all of your other people. You can't rely upon this one great contributor because he may go somewhere else. Something might happen to him. A family member gets ill and he's gone, whatever. You've got to develop these people. And when the light bulbs go on for leaders, like, oh my gosh, I've got to develop my coach hat. Yes. And that's a light bulb moment. I remember Nick Saban did a speech a while back. He said, mediocre performers don't like high performers, and high performers don't like mediocre performers. He was talking about as you level up, it separates people. So you've got to be focused on building these leaders because they're going to be building leaders and building leaders and building leaders. And that infinite game starts to play. And your job as a leader on that first leadership team gets a whole lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you a question about, team members on a team. A big red flag for me sometimes when I walk into a company and everybody's the leaders are all referring, well, my employee or my this, right?
My property.
It drives me nuts, right? Because they're really team members. If you go to Autovol, I love everybody's called a solutioneer. Nobody's an employee. They're all solutioneers.
Yes. I saw that. I actually reached out to them, told them I love that.
Yeah. So what is your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people out there still say, oh, my employee, does this. I mean, it's not a horrible thing because they are an employee, but at the same time, it doesn't really fit the culture of growing and being a team to me. Yeah. It sounds like it worked for you when somebody says that.
Yeah. When you still think of your people as employees, you haven't yet figured it out. But when you see them as team members, a part of the family, and you can be a family of 5,000, by the way, easily. We used to say a business in the healthy side of life, this isn't business, this is personal. And right. We don't help we don't supply clients. We only help our friends. When you start bringing people into the fold like that, and it's like, we are in this together. And one of the stories that I tell is, imagine that you were going to start this new business. We talked about this a little bit, and you're going to go into the screwdriver cleaning business. And everybody's like, awesome. When do we start? We want to help you start that business. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your people want to be with you, whether you're a leader, whether you're a peer, or whether you're below them. Tom, he's the greatest guy on the production line. He's 4 levels down, but he inspires, and he's always there to help other people. He doesn't, it's like, we did this together. If something's wrong, he takes responsibility for it. Those kinds of mindsets, you want those people wherever you're going or whatever you're doing. And whether you're going to be 50 or 5,000, you can have that kind of culture, but you've got to focus on it intentionally.
Let's talk about all the things that you do. We spent a lot of time on culture. We talked a little bit about coaching. If I say, hey, Mitch, listen, I need help. Right.
You do need help, Dave, but I'm not sure if I've got the kind of help that you need.
Well, we won't talk about, I'm not even going to go there. We had a conversation before this. Anywho.
Jen keeps telling me, please help Dave.
Dude, I need help, man. Hey, listen, from a company perspective, right? I mean, I know my place, for the most part, when it comes to Jen and Dave, right? Yeah. I always tell everybody, you give me a spreadsheet, I turn into a possum, I roll over and freeze, right? But if you want me in front of 1,000 people, hey, I'm the guy. Put me out there. I'll have fun with it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the services that you offer, Mitch, because it's not just about building culture. It sounds to me like there's some self growth, help going here, and you know, I'm in a vulnerable place in my life. Can you help me be better at X, Y, Z? Because it's not just one thing. Like you have to look at the whole package. I'm assuming.
Yeah. In big picture, and I've got my subtitle there, I'd say healthy, whole, and profitable.
Yeah.
That healthy and whole is the big thing. Like when I work with I'm going to use the word client loosely here. When I work with somebody I care about, because that's the biggest thing for me, I've got to make sure that I really, really like that person, so I can then help them go on a growth journey. And because we're going to be in this in a while together. When I'm working with somebody, I want them to be that greatest version of themselves so they can impact other people along the way when they start seeing that. So the big things that I do, a Pinnacle, I was a Pinnacle client. I got to experience what it was like to scale a business using Pinnacle. Greg Cleary, one of the founders, super inspirational guy, very impactful in my life. And I said, hey, Greg, I would like to help my clients with this as well, because I believe in it. And I joined Pinnacle a while back, and I do a lot of implementations with companies in North America, like most of the United States and Canada. I've got some stuff in Europe that I do as well, but it's basically helping companies get on this bandwagon of understanding we're going to focus on our people first. Then we're going to come up with our purpose and our core values, what we're about. Then we're going to move into our processes. A lot of companies start processes with people that are not healthy, with no sense of direction. And then we're going to get around to performance. And most companies really focus on performance with very little process. So by the time we get down to the technical things of process and performance, it's a lot easier. The next thing I do, I work with a lot of folks on leadership development, helping CEOs, presidents, executive teams become great leaders. And that's that big part of that, not the inspire, but the coach, and be a coach and developer of others. So working one-on-one with leaders to help them be a great coach so they can equip others. So those are the two big things. And then moving down the line, helping owners get to a place where they can step away from the business. And I spoke at a CEO forum back in January. A group of guys got together, and I got invited to come down and talk to them. And the talk was moving from operator to owner and beyond. And it was like, what would it be like to have a lasting legacy that you could look back at? What would you want people to say about you at your funeral after you're gone, which is very poignant, like a type of, what you want them to say. And they wrote these very aspirational things. I said, okay, what's missing for that to happen today if you died today? It's like, oh, crap. I set it up on purpose. You're welcome. Not sorry. But they realized there was this big gap between what they were doing in their life and in their business to what they would want to be remembered for. And the biggest gap were they were operating their businesses very successful, but they were operating it. Yeah, I just really don't have anybody can take over. I'm just really struggling. I'm trying to get my son, my daughter, this guy, I'm trying to get him to level up. I was like, what are you trying to do? Will him up? Like, grow, I think I can, like the little engine that could. And they realized they hadn't yet gotten to that stage of being able to step away because they didn't know how. So I say, okay, what do we do to get you from being an owner operator to being an owner where you've got a team that's running this company in a very healthy way, where you can go do other things. You can get involved in a nonprofit, travel with your family, whatever, donate your time to other things. How do we get there? And are you willing to go on that journey? So you could step away. You can, still get a good paycheck, or you could sell it to employees, or you could sell it to a strategic investor. But, how do you get to that stage where you've got at least the freedom to make those choices? So those are the big boxes that I work in.
Oh man, do I need help? I'm ready. When do we get started?
Sign me up, put me in, coach.
Yeah, put me in. I got to clone myself or find somebody that does this well. You sound like a good option.
Hold on a second. Jen says, I only looking for one of him.
Yeah, that's right. You clone him, Mitch, and you'll be on the hit list for sure.
Yeah, I will kill you.
So, Mitch, we're coming up on time here in just a minute. But if you were to give somebody any advice, a small business or a startup, somebody is starting out, right? Because when you're a one-person show, your goal is to grow to 5 people, 10 people, maybe, unless you're just an independent consultant. What would you say is the most important thing to put in place first before you even start opening your doors to business?
Wow. The most important thing to put in place first, man, I would say this, Dave, get over yourself. Stop
Yes.
trying to make yourself great. Stop trying to be successful. Stop trying to make money. Yes, when you get into business for yourself, you can make a heck of a lot more money than working for somebody. That is the result of something else. Focus on making other people great. Focus on developing other people. And some of the folks listening to me right now say, well, I've never been anybody great but myself. There's no time like now to start learning on that. Focus on making other people great. Because if you make other people great, you turn them into great leaders. You go look back at that and you will never, ever, ever regret it. Making a lot of money, that's like, okay, what next? You know, I mean, there's been people that are listening to the show that have been wildly financially successful. What do you do with that? Oh, I bought a more expensive yacht. You know, what color is your Bentley? I mean, that stuff doesn't really mean anything. No one's going to count your cars and say, wow, what a great car collection you had when you're dead and gone. But who did you impact in your life? Having people speak at your funeral and say, oh my gosh, Dave Cooper invested in me and changed the trajectory of my life, and I owe my success to him. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Unicorn.
You know, it's funny, Jen, myself, we were developers and builders for a lot of years, 20 plus years, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And when we started doing, you know, the Dave Cooper Live show, all we were doing is hanging out with forward thinking people and people that were trying to make a difference, and then showcasing, like, I have the best job in the world. I really do. Everybody always wondered, they're like, you're the same on camera as you are off camera. I'm like, I know. I get to do the coolest things in the world, and I don't hang out with anybody that says, oh, well, we tried that and it didn't work, or, you know, it's always forward looking. And I tell everybody, this was a hobby that went terribly wrong. That's what I always say to everybody. Like, who would have thought I'm working, you know, more with, and there was no business plan from it, because it was just for fun.
Yeah.
You know, and then it kind of spiraled into what it is today. But you're right. Like, you know, if you do what you truly love and you're passionate about it, and people like what you're doing, or they appreciate what you're doing, and, you know, we just showcase and put like yourself on this show and say, hey, here's an option for you out there. You know, it's a pretty damn good option, in my opinion, you know, so that's why we have you on the show. So, Mitch, I get it. I think from that perspective, it's great. I think the hardest part for people that are extroverts like myself and that do these great things is details sometimes, and really truly understanding how the small details can really impact your quality of life and your team's quality of life in the business now and 20 years from now, because it's going to live on without you.
Awesome.
Yeah. What did I miss, Mitch? Did I leave anything out? Did I forget to mention something, you know?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff, but you want me to remember what you forgot?
Oh, well, don't you have
well, let's say one thing. I've been fortunate enough to be invited to co-author a book that's coming out this fall. Some of you folks have maybe read The Path to the Pinnacle before. If not, if you send me a message, I'll make sure that you get a copy. Happy birthday. Everybody has a birthday this year. But we got a new book coming out called Conquer the Climb. Early teaser alert on that. It's coming out in the fall. And I got invited to co-author it. So looking forward to being a part of that. That's part of our Pinnacle ecosystem.
I love it. Mitch.
Oh my gosh, I just saw you stick that out. That was Jen in real time in the background, huh?
Oh, putting up the logo down below.
She's a keeper. Look, there it is. Dude, you married up, man. You married up.
I did. I like it. It still shocks me every day. So
I tell my friends to find a very sharp woman with a momentary lapse in judgment.
Yeah, you know, very, very right. Hey, listen, there's very few successful people out there that don't have somebody behind them. It takes a team, not only in business but in relationships, right? I mean, it's constant change and constant drive, and that's what's great about it. So, hey, Mitch, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us today. And for all of those that are out there, please make sure you reach out to our supporting members. This is an invite-only show. This is not a pay-to-play. We have supporting members. We'd love to have your logo down there supporting us. If we're bringing you value and you enjoy this show, hey, reach out to us and we'll give you some shout-outs, put your name down there. Hey, and we'll invite you to some really cool executive events that we do with executives like Mitch and CEOs from around the world. Mitch, any last words? We good?
Man, just been a great time, Dave. Love the energy you bring in the room. Thank you for inviting me on. It was so great. Just serendipity, running into you and Jennifer in the hallway at IBS. Like, hey, can you be on our show? No,
Amen.
we want you on. Book here. Pick a date. So it was just so fun to have that happen. And here we are today.
Hey, when you run with thoroughbreds, you run into other thoroughbreds. That's usually how it works, right? So great seeing you, Mitch. Don't go anywhere. I'll come right back to you after the end of the show. And for the rest of you out there, it's only Monday. Guess what? You still got 4.5 days to keep building it better. So stop watching my show in a minute and then get back to it because, hey, we got to solve this housing crisis. We got to make homes more affordable, more sustainable, and we got to build them better. That's what we're all about on this show, showcasing the people that can help us do that. Mitch, don't go anywhere, everybody else. Make sure you say thank you to all these supporting members as well. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.